This is Kevin Conroy, the Batman, and you're listening to Nerd On.
Nerd On.
Awesome.
So, welcome everyone. We have a pretty exciting day today.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Before we get started, Josh, do the honors.
This episode is brought to you in part by our Patreon. It allows us to do so much. If you'd like to find out more information about that or the show itself, hit up www.nerdonthepodcast.com. Everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Josh, one of the hosts, if you're new to the show.
And my name is Tom. I am the comic book nerd and fiend of the show.
I'm Corey. I'm the loud one.
Ali, resident deep sexy voice. Although I think
You've been out sexy.
I've been out
this
sexy
episode.
this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have definitely been out sexy. I'm
by our
sorry.
illustrious guest.
Sexy.
If people at home have not guessed, our guest is Kevin Conroy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that Kevin Conroy.
Before you ask,
Kevin Conroy.
that Kevin Conroy? Yes, that Kevin Conroy. The Batman. This will be the second Batman that we've had on our show.
It
is.
Yeah.
Very, very excited.
Who's the other one?
Reno Romano was on our show.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, but this is the voice of a generation.
It really is. From 1992, correct?
Yeah.
Voice of my childhood.
Yeah, we started recording. It went on the air in 93, but we started recording them in 92.
Woo! Look at
Wow.
you, Josh.
And before we get started, thank you, Kevin, for taking time out of your
Yeah,
day to
seriously.
be on the show. I
Sure.
know all of our audiences love you too. So.
I don't know. Why did I become that Kevin Conroy? So associated with the character. I don't know how that happened.
Well, we could tell you. We could all sit here and talk about it for hours.
But how does that happen? You start out just acting and suddenly you stumble into a role and it's 27 years later and you're identified with it. You think, well, this isn't what I was planning when I was at Juilliard. Life is weird that way.
Life is a funny thing.
You were
Yeah.
planning to be an actor. Like
An actor, yes.
An actor
Yeah.
of the theater.
Not that he's not an actor.
No, I mean,
But yes.
but like that
stage.
kind of fancy schmancy
Yeah.
Shakespeare and everything.
Fancy actor
Well-
that makes no money. Yeah.
There's
guess-
something very Shakespearean about Batman.
Yeah, there is. There really is.
There absolutely is, which is why I got the job. I think it was a strange thing. People always ask me, how do you get into the voiceover business? And I say, well, not the way I did. So I can't give you any advice because I stumbled into it. I was a stage actor and then, trained at Juilliard, classic work. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in LA doing a pilot for a series in 92. I had done a lot of commercial voiceovers in New York because that's how theater actors supplement their income in New York. A lot of them do voiceover work. But in New York, it's all commercial work. So I had a voiceover agent, and I was in LA, and he said, "Look, they're putting together a new show at Warner Brothers, Batman. Why don't you go over and give it a shot?" And I said, "New show? Batman's been around forever." And he said, "No, it's never actually been an animated series." So I was so naive to the genre and to the character, I didn't even know it had never been an animated show. My only exposure to it had been the Adam West show.
Right.
Growing up in the 60s. So, but the reason I think I got it was because I was so naive. I had no expectations. I had no preconceptions. I went into that audition like a completely clean slate. I met Bruce Timm and Andrea Romano and Paul Dini.
Wow.
I mean, I was reading, the A-Team animation,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know who they were. So I couldn't get intimidated. I couldn't get nervous because
You just didn't know.
I didn't know. I didn't even know I didn't know Batman had never been animated before. I didn't know anything about it. And they said, "Well, what is your background in this?" I said, "Well, I know the Adam West show." And they said, No. We all love Adam and we love that show, but that's not what we're doing. And so Bruce Timm had to explain the whole thing to me. He said, "No, we're going dark. It's going to be very noir. Think of 40s movies from Hollywood." And he was as a child, he witnessed his parents' brutal murder in front of him. And it scarred him for life, and he's been spent his life suffering from that tragedy, never having overcome it. And the way he dealt with the pain was to internalize it and create this vigilante hero out of that pain to try and cure the world. I said, wow, this is a very classic kind of epic character you're describing. This is a like an Orestes, or this is a Hamlet.
Oh yeah.
And because that's how I was putting it in perspective to what I had played. You know,
That's what you were filtering it through.
That's how I was filtering it through that. And Bruce said, well, no one's approached it from that before. So I said, well, let me just use my imagination. Let me just put myself into the head of that character and let me see what happens. And I just put myself into the darkest,
Oh man.
most painful place I could go. And this voice came out of me, which I'd never used before.
If you could see the smiles in this room right now.
It was totally spontaneous. It was totally an actor improvising in an audition situation. I had no idea what I was going to do when I went in there. So that's just not the way it happens. You know what I mean?
Right.
Usually people do, weeks of preparation and homework and planning, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. This was winging it. And it was fate.
Yeah.
I was someone who trained in Shakespeare and the classics. I happened to be in LA. It was the first animated thing I went in on. I just improvised on the spot, and it was just the right actor for the right role.
At the right time,
It's seen over 500 people.
Wow.
And they were desperate. They were getting close to going into production, and they still hadn't found their Batman. And
I had no idea that they had tried out so many people.
Yeah, they'd been looking for months.
Well, lightning struck. And
right.
It's like,
thank God.
I'd love to be able to take credit for having schemed up this wonderful audition. But
I meant to do that.
It was a lightning strike. It was one of those 1 in a million things that just I was so lucky to get. Just so lucky to get.
And people born in that time range are also lucky to have as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, the whole experience, I tell you, has been very humbling.
Oh man.
Because the show took off to the point where Andrea said she could get anyone she wanted to come in on guest spots. I mean, Roddy McDowell and Ron Perlman and Adrienne Barbeau. And, I mean, everybody was coming in on this thing. Mark Hamill, as the Joker. I mean, it was crazy.
And the chemistry you two have is crazy good.
It is. He also was a theater actor.
Oh yeah.
Originally, so we had a lot in common. We actually knew a lot of people in common, but we had never met. And he's a very generous guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's, actors are people. There are selfish ones, generous ones, mean ones, kind ones. They're
talented ones.
Yeah.
Talented ones.
Talented ones who are really awful. Yeah. But Mark is just a really generous actor. And see, I've always found that the more you give, the more you get. And it's especially true on stage. The more you give to the other actor, the more they're going to give back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives you more to react to. And the more you give them, the better they'll make you act.
Yeah, it's a relationship.
But a lot of actors don't act that way. A lot of actors are very selfish on stage.
Yeah.
And it can be very frustrating. Mark is just instinctively has the same approach to the business I do. He is generous. I love to watch him watch me because he gets such a kick out of it when I'm good. And he makes me so proud because, it's like, I want to be good for him. And, and I can tell that he loves working with me. We really bring out the best in each other. And I also think the two characters, Batman would not be Batman without Joker.
No.
And Joker would not be Joker without Batman. We're sort of the yin and yang of our characters. His darkness defines my light in that sense. I definitely think we define each other.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of cool because you don't hear a lot in the voiceover world that people get to interact with each other very often, or even get to go to the same sessions as each other. So it's kind of cool to hear that you guys
Isn't
have.
that true?
Yeah,
That's so true, especially at Disney and some of the other studios. They like to record people separately. And that's for a technical reason. First of all, everyone has such crazy schedules; it's hard to get people in a room together.
Oh yeah.
So it's easier to book people individually. But also, if you have a completely clean take, audio wise, it's much easier in post production to edit, and they have much more control over. So they get much cleaner takes when everyone's recording separately. So I know Disney likes to record people separately, but Warner really tries to get everyone in the booth together, and especially Andrea. She basically insists on it. So the bookings were always like radio plays. We were all in the rooms together. So, over all these years, I've worked with amazing actors in these recordings. It's very unusual that we record separately. Like The Killing Joke, the most recent movie I did with Mark, that unfortunately we had to record separately because he has had this new Star Wars rebirth in his career. And he was in London shooting at the time. So we did record Killing Joke separately, but that was very unusual. He knew what he would do and he knew what I would do. So it was as if the other person was in the room.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, when you have a relationship for that long, I'm sure it's easy to predict a little bit to a point. And we, Tom and I went and saw that at the Chinese theater, and we were blown away by that. That was so much fun.
Wasn't he incredible?
Oh, it was great. That show number too.
Oh yeah.
I know.
But you guys, I mean, honestly, some of my favorite actors together.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, being in that room together, I'm kind of curious, is there a point in time where you felt that, okay, now this is something magical, this is something that is going to be important to a lot of people, or was it always there from the beginning that you kind of had that instinct that this is going to be a show that people remember?
Something special, yeah.
At the very beginning, because it was all so new to me, I was, how sometimes you get a job and you keep waiting for them to realize that you shouldn't have been hired.
I'm still waiting for that moment.
You keep waiting for someone to tap you on the back and say, "Excuse me, we made a mistake. We didn't mean you. We meant the other guy." I kept expecting that to happen the first few weeks because it was all new to me. I kept thinking, well, this might not last more than a few episodes. So every time someone new came in, like meeting Mark or meeting Adrian or meeting Eileen Sorkin, who was the first Harley Quinn. It was all so new, and also I was new to the voiceover world, and a lot of these people had relationships, and I didn't. I was the new kid at this all. And
what's this guy doing here?
Yeah, exactly. How did he get the big role? Yeah. And it wasn't really till after it started playing for a while that I really thought this was going to take off, because it was all kind of new to me.
Yeah.
I started running into people who were seeing the show, and I realized, wow, this is developing a following. This is amazing. So I was very slow to realize how powerful it was going to be. And I didn't, also because before the internet, no one ever recognized people who did it. It was a totally anonymous gig. So no one knew that I was doing this. And when I started getting recognized for it, that really blew me away. It still shocks me. And, I live in New York, and I get in the subway all the time. People will go, "Oh my God, you're Batman." And I'll think, how do you know that? Everybody knows who's Batman. So they'll say, "Oh, would you do the voice?" And in a subway car, it's insane to do. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And you're in a subway car, and it's like echoing, and all these other people look at you like, who is the crazy dude screaming that he's Batman?
Another crazy person in New York.
Well, there was that story. I believe I heard you told a while back where you were working in some soup kitchen, and someone didn't believe you were Batman.
That was funny.
You didn't casually throw it in. It's like, "Hi, I'm Kevin Conroy, and I'm Batman."
No, one of the other workers recognized me, and he said, "Oh, he said my day job is," because it was a nighttime a group soup kitchen, and
Mm-hmm.
it was after an event in New York when people were volunteering, and he said, well, you do some kind of acting. You do special kind of acting. I said, well, yeah, my name's Kevin Conroy. He said, oh my God, I knew that was you. You're the guy who was Batman. I said, how do you know that? He said, everybody knows who's Batman. I said, no, believe me, everyone does not know who's
I don't
Batman.
even know I'm Batman.
Heard me. How have you heard of me? And he said, oh God, you gotta, convince the guys in the dining room that it's you. And
That's awesome.
he went out and he said, hey, everybody, Batman's been cooking your dinners. And you hear,
Man.
bullshit. Someone, because it was a bunch of firemen and policemen. And so it was all relief workers. And then someone else said, make him prove it. So I thought, this is great. So back from the kitchen, I did that voice. I did, I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And then there was this long pause and you hear, holy shit. So yeah, I'm sort of still shocked when people recognize me. I was just in Dublin for the Dublin Comic-Con and got stopped on the street. And people said, what's Batman doing in Dublin? I said, how do you know? This one guy goes, oh, you're kidding? You're the Irish Batman. We all love the Irish Batman.
Irish Batman. That's amazing.
Awesome.
So why do you think Batman as a character has been able to identify with so many people?
It's really interesting. The reason I love going to Comic-Cons is because I get to interact with the audience.
Mhm.
And my first love was the theater. And in the theater, you really interact with the audience. You experience live theater. You experience the creative process with the audience. And in recordings, you don't get any of that. So I love to go out and interact and hear the stories from people of what the characters meant to them. And it's amazing how emotional people get. I've had people start crying when
Wow.
they just say, please, I've always just wanted to hold you. Can I hold you? And I'll hug somebody and they'll just start crying. And I say,
Wow.
I want to
What's-
hug you right now.
We were all actually crying before we started recording today.
no, I'll say, well, no, it's okay. It's okay. And the person will say, no, you don't understand. I had a horrible childhood. I had a really horrible childhood. And you were my safe zone. You were the voice of my safe place. And you were there every afternoon. And you realize that when you're the voice of an animated character, much more so than when you're a live action character, you go inside people's imaginations.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You go to a very personal place with them and you live in their imagination with that animated character, and you're the voice they associate with it.
Mhm.
So you go to a very personal place with people. So the audience for Batman is a really passionate. I just can't say enough about them. They're wonderful people.
Mhm.
He's touched them. The character touches them so deeply. His nobility, the fact that he comes from a dark place and he overcomes it without any superpowers. And he goes to such nobility rather than letting life destroy him. He conquers his own pain. He conquers the darkness of life and he makes something light of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so ennobling that people just admire him so much. The character, because he's so flawed, but he doesn't let his flaws destroy him.
Mhm.
So people really relate to that.
He
Oh, yeah,
embraces them.
Well, yeah, he embraces them. He stands up against them.
I think specifically your iteration championed that a lot.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think a lot of people have taken a lot of liberties, having their own spins on it, but think most people now, they could think Adam West, but a lot of people, they hear you
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they remember what the lessons that this show that Bruce Timm and you and Andrea Romano made together.
Well, I like how he phrased it. He said that especially voice acting is a way for you to get into someone's imagination or deeper into that safe place. And I think that's very true. I mean, if you think about Kevin, you've played Batman for so long. There's been different looks, different iterations. You have the video
Batman
game.
Beyond, Arkham series.
Right.
But that voice is the string, the through line through all of that makes us all go, oh yeah, that's Batman.
Yeah.
No matter what he looks like. Oh yeah, that's You know, I
You could
really
put him
liked
in
the
a
way you
tutu
phrased
and you'd be
that.
like, oh yeah, that's Batman.
Yeah.
That's
I can't believe how amazing it's been to play this character because there are so many levels to him.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many corners in his darkness. People ask me often, what other characters do you want to play? And I say, well, I kind of got the brass ring.
Yeah.
Who else is there?
None of the others come even close in terms of interest.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Maybe Joker. I mean, he's so wacky.
yeah.
But
I would listen to Kevin play Joker. An
Absolutely.
episode where him and Mark flip
well,
out.
actually, I'm doing a new character on a Nickelodeon series that I'm not allowed to say what it is because it hasn't been announced yet. But he's a Joker-ish character,
Oh my god.
Wow.
and it's a blast doing it. I love doing it, but it hasn't been announced yet. So.
Well, we
Oh,
will
no
definitely
worries.
keep an eye and an ear out for that.
Absolutely.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
You talked a little bit about Adam West and how that was your main like understanding of Batman before it. So now after you, there's been so many more different iterations and versions. Who has been your favorite Batman other than you? Because I mean, most of the time everyone's like, "Oh, you have the Bale and the Key," and for me, it's Conroy. I mean, like they could look like whoever, but as long as it sounds like Conroy, I'm totally okay with the casting.
That's cool. Well, actors always have little tools they use to approach characters.
Mhm.
My approach to playing the role was that Batman isn't the performance. Bruce Wayne is the performance.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Batman is who he is. And Bruce Wayne, he puts on the suit, he puts on the face, he can face the world with the armor of that suit.
Mm-hmm.
But and if you approach it that way, then the persona of Batman, the voice of Batman, it sounds very grounded. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
sounds very real.
Because he doesn't have to try hard.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the actors who get that are the ones that I really think get Batman. And I guess the closest so far has been Ben Affleck in terms of getting both Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
But, Christian Bale is the personification of Bruce Wayne. He's a perfect Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he got the Batman side of the coin.
I think
See,
that
I've said
that is
that.
absolutely one of
We've
one of
said that
the
on here
topics
before.
out there, and especially in this room, trying to figure out like
I've
who
always said
is
I'd
the
wanna
perfect
see-
combination.
I've
Yeah.
always said I've always wanted to see the Bale's Wayne with Affleck's Batman.
Mm.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
One thing I really loved was in Batman Beyond. There's that one villain that's like taunting Bruce Wayne and it's calling him Bruce and Bruce, and it leads to believe that like Bruce is going crazy. But then the part that you say
Mhm.
is like, I don't address myself as Bruce.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you call yourself then? And then it's just a smile.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, that to me again is the iteration, the psychology, the credo of what Batman / Bruce Wayne is.
Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that was.
I
so
love
cool.
that.
I had never heard anyone say that before. So I kind of found that out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we got that from you. Don't get us wrong.
We stole
Thank
that. It's okay.
That's from 20 years of watching it.
Yeah. Kind of like a similar, I guess, kind of flipping that question a little bit. Has there been, of course, you've been doing Batman for so long and you continue to do so. And at the same time, you see all these other Batmans kind of doing their thing. Is there at any point where either they've influenced your work as Batman or or do you feel like you've maybe influenced their work as Batman?
No, I don't.
Or do you just have it, you have it down pat?
I don't think I've influenced anyone, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
Except all of us in the room.
All of us in the room. I mean, I'm wearing a Batman shirt right now. I don't know if I was supposed to tell you that.
I'm wearing the cowl, so I mean, and the cape, so.
Yeah, but you do that all the time.
Oh, shh. Don't tell him. I'm a little curious because I kind of want to get a little bit of personal information about Kevin Conroy. What was life like before Batman? Like you mentioned Juilliard, you mentioned acting. Like
When were you bit by the bug?
I was really a weird kid. And I was a strange kid. And I spent a lot of time alone. And I got I got involved in theater in junior high school because I was so having such a hard time adjusting. This teacher who ran this theater program in this junior high school realized that I was having real problems adjusting. And she suggested that I audition for the school play, I think just to get me involved. And I auditioned for the play and I got the lead and I fell in love with being on stage. As soon as I was on stage, rather than getting nervous, I felt really at home. I felt so comfortable. Whereas off stage, I felt so uncomfortable. I was a kid who was uncomfortable in his own skin, and I found comfort actually on the stage. And I was only about like 13 or 14 when this happened. So my parents divorced when I was about 15, and I left high school when I was around 17, a little early, graduated early, because the house was being sold, everyone was leaving, and I needed to get a scholarship to go to school because there wasn't any other way for me to go to post high school school. So I auditioned for Juilliard, and they gave me a full scholarship. So
Holy
it all
shit.
it all kind of happened very much. I mean, it's almost as if there's been some hand guiding me for a long time. When I was a really strange kid, this teacher came out of nowhere and introduced me to the theater. And then just as my family was dissolving around me and there was no way to go to college, I was able to use that theater interest to get a scholarship to go to Juilliard. And then I was in New York and I was waiting tables, and who was my roommate but Robin Williams? I mean,
Wow.
you know what I mean? And my classmate was Kelsey Grammer. I mean, and then Juilliard, the acting company, and I was playing the leads in the plays. I was doing, Edgar in King Lear for John Houseman, in a production that he was producing. And then I went from that into Death Trap on Broadway and did the national tour for a year. So, I mean, it's just one of those odd stories of the kid who was kind of struggling, finding his way. It's like that John Lennon song, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
Yeah.
I didn't know where life was bringing me, but I was on my own since I was about 17, and I've been supporting myself. And amazingly, I've been able to do it either through scholarships or odd jobs, or by the time I was 21, I've been supporting myself as an actor, which is pretty amazing in this business. I mean, so it was an odd beginning to a career. I didn't even know, to be honest, how many risks I was taking. I mean, moving into New York at 17, when I look at 17-year-olds now, I think it looks like such a child to me. I can't believe I was that child. And I moved into New York and got my first apartment. I was living on my own. I mean, how did I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I did it. I ended up moving to New York when I was 18, and I barely handled it then.
Oh, there you go.
I couldn't have done it when I was any younger than that. But I had a quick question. Since you've stumbled into the voice acting world, have you gone back to theater? Is it still something you frequent?
It's not something I frequent, but I did go back. I did. I have an amazing story.
Please.
I moved back to New York in 2000. I lived in LA from like 85 till about 2000. And then I still had an apartment in New York, and I would commute back and, see people. And I did a play on Broadway called Eastern Standard that I was really proud of. But I was based in LA. I kind of gave up on LA in 2000 because it's a strange town. People live in their cars and they go from their house to their car, to the gym, to the car, to the store, to the car, to the office, to the car. And you never meet people. It can be a very isolating place. So I was really happy to move back to New York, where I was much more comfortable, because I'm a more of a city person. Gotcha. And the first thing I did when I got back was Arthur Miller's last play, and I worked with Arthur Miller.
Oh my gosh, that's
How
amazing!
Holy shit,
that's amazing.
How amazing!
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
It was a play called The Last Yankee,
Oh,
And I played the last Yankee. I played the character who was this sort of last of a family, and he's a blue collar worker, and he feels like a failure in life, and he's struggling with his wife who's going through depression to make her want to live. It's a beautiful story of a young couple going through crisis, and the director was a very famous theater director named Joseph Chaikin. And Joe Chaikin ran the Open Theater back in the 60s in New York, and he's kind of a legend.
Yeah.
But by the time I worked, he had had a stroke. And so he had aphasia and he couldn't
Wow.
talk. So he was communicating through sort of notes and hand signals. And he had an assistant who would interpret what he meant. This was very frustrating to work with and difficult to work with. So Arthur ended up sitting in on all the rehearsals and basically guiding us through the rehearsal process because he never directed his own plays.
Oh, really?
So I was working with him.
that's awesome.
And his
Wow.
wife, Inga Marath, who was also a famous photographer from Germany, would sit in on all the rehearsals. And it was just an amazing experience. And to be back on stage in New York and to feel the lights come up on me again and that safe space that the stage felt like, it was a very emotional experience.
Oh man, you've
Yeah.
had quite the experience of life, kind of bumping into the right people at the right times.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's magic. It's that like what I'm loving about this is I'm hearing the magic in your voice. Like you're still kind of like, how in the hell did this happen? And and I love it. I mean, it's really cool that you, after so many years of doing a certain character, and like you were saying, you were like, how am I recognized by just my voice and the magic of that in itself? But it's like it's so cool to hear that you appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very appreciative. I'm very, very appreciative, believe me, because I've had dark moments in my life. I've had periods where I didn't know, when the next job was going to come and really scared. And so I am very, very, very appreciative of how things have turned out.
And you're continuing Batman still as we go, right?
Yeah.
And well, I was curious. I don't know if because you mentioned you're working on a different character. Do you feel like there was a storyline or a part of the Batman character that you feel like you haven't explored quite yet, or that you would want to explore further, like kind of like a
You mean like a
dream
comic book
storyline,
storyline or something like that?
something like that, or
Favorite storylines have been the ones that deal with um, that send him back to the original tragedy that formed him, the place where his personality split.
Mhm.
I love the ones because that's what makes the character so interesting to me and makes him so complicated to me, and that's what the audience really relates to is the tragedy of him and the so the love interest stories are fun. The Adrian Beaumont from Mask of the Phantasm,
Oh,
It's Tom's
You know,
favorite.
the flirting with Catwoman, all this, or Harley Quinn in the latest Harley Quinn movie. All these things are fun, but anything that gets into his psychology, I think, are the ones that I love to play the most.
Yeah.
So, like in Mask of the Phantasm, actually, there's a scene where he falls in love and he realizes what love is, and it's what life is about. It's what we are here to do, is to love. And he realizes he's been missing this. And he goes to his parents' grave and he asks them to release him from his vow, to release him from his pledge to avenge their deaths, and to let him lead a normal life. And he breaks down at this grave and he's crying
it's
and he's
raining, all of it. Yeah.
and pleading with them to let him go. And just at that moment, the 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 earth opens up and a huge flock of bats come screeching out from under Wayne Manor. And he feels his fate pulling him back down, and he knows he can never escape his fate. It's such a beautiful
Oh my
scene.
god.
yeah.
His heart is so open. I remember so well the day I recorded that scene. Andrea came into the booth, and she never comes into the booth. She always stays in the in the other side of the glass. And she came in and she just held me and she said, "That was absolutely beautiful. That was
Oh man.
that was a performance." And I just, I'm an actor. I love to give a good performance. So I loved recording that. And also there was a story, Perchance to Dream, when Batman is drugged and he goes back into his youth and he's struggling with his father. And I played Batman, Bruce Wayne, drugged Batman, teenage Bruce Wayne, and Thomas Wayne, the father.
Man.
Oh yeah.
So I was playing 5 characters. They all had to be distinct, but they all had to be believably related.
Mhm.
It was so much fun to record.
Oh,
It
you really
was,
got to play on that one.
yeah. So it's just fun when you're challenged. Those are the storylines I love to do the most.
That's so
That's
cool.
excellent.
I'm glad you brought up that scene. That's actually a talking point for Tom and I. Quite often, we'll talk about that scene specifically from that movie.
As much as we probably want to talk about Batman, we do want to get into other topics that you're pretty passionate about as well.
Speaking of,
I heard that you were passionate about Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, I grew up. I'm older than I look. I like to tell. I like to tell people before I say I grew up in the Vietnam era, and I missed the draft by like 1 year. I mean,
wow.
the year I turned draftable age was the year they started the volunteer army. And all through high school, I was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because by then, everyone knew the war was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was so late in the conflict. People were coming back so damaged, and these guys came back and they just got crap by the public. They got really mistreated.
oh yeah,
And it was horrible to watch. And my brother is a disabled vet, and so I deal with the West Haven VA a lot in Connecticut, which is where my brother gets treatment. And I'm there a lot, and I see what's happened, and it's heartbreaking. And to know that like something like 25% of the homeless in this country are veterans,
Oh, wow.
it's heartbreaking. So like just last weekend, I was part of a crew that was helping build houses, homes for vets. It's called, and if anyone wants to go to my website at Real Kevin Conroy on Twitter, Real Kevin Conroy on Twitter, they can see a link to making a donation to Homes for Vets.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Organization that builds homes literally for veterans to live in. It's a whole community being built. And a bunch of actors got together last weekend. I was there with Dietrich Bader. We called us, we were the Batman crew.
You guys love your tools, right?
Yeah, we love our tools. So we were doing that together. But also I got into it more. I did a series called Tour of Duty back in the 80s. It was the first Vietnam show on television.
Oh, wow.
And I used to do a lot of appearances for the Vietnam Veterans of America on weekends off. And I'd fly to different cities and do appearances with VVA groups. And man, the damage a lot of these people were walking through life with was extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I just think we can't do enough for people who've been through all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
I definitely agree, as my dad is a vet as well. So it's amazing what happens and what doesn't happen
Yeah.
in terms for veterans. So
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that link too. That was actually our follow-up question.
yeah,
Besides that, is there any other way that our listeners can reach out, get involved, that we can get involved?
Well, it's called Homes for Vets, and homes the number 4 and then vets.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's they've got their own website and stuff like that. If
Cool.
anyone wants to make donations, that it's always appreciated.
We'll put a link on our social medias when we upload this episode.
Great.
And hopefully we can use we can actually make a show donation ourselves.
So I think moving quite along actually, right into Les Enfants du Paradis, right?
Wow.
wow,
You guys asked what my favorite movies were, and that was just one that just so affected me when I was young.
Right.
First time I saw it. It's such a beautiful movie.
Do you remember how old you were when you watched it?
God, the first time I saw it, I may have been like, I was probably about 14, and just blew me away that moment. I mean, when she screams at towards the end of it is
Oh yeah.
so breathtaking. And also when you realize when that movie was made and how
And how it was made, yeah.
it was made on occupation in Vichy, France, when none of the actors could get jobs anywhere else.
Yeah.
They hid Jewish actors on that set in the cast.
Yeah.
And hid like Jewish wardrobe people in their wardrobe people. I mean, it was all done under the Germans' noses in occupied France. Everything about that movie is extraordinary.
It's fascinating. I was reading up on it myself, and not only did they hide people within the cast, but half of the extras were also pro-Nazi supporters. And so they had to keep this kind of secretive thing going on in order for the movie to be made.
Yeah, because they had people hidden that were from the French resistance. And so you had people that weren't friends working together, but nobody really knew what was going on.
Everything in that movie, I think, is just so breathtaking. And the fact that it was made at all, and it's such a beautiful work of art. And you know that moment it's at the end when she screams his name? I mean, it's just, your heart breaks.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who might not be aware at home, we're talking about Children of Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the English title,
Yeah.
40s movie.
Criterion Collection, Janus film.
Romanticizes the theater quite a bit, actually, which is kind of...
Yes, it does. It's about a theater group. Yes, it does.
It was the French answer to Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
It was funny that we saw that in like, something that we could talk about, mainly because it totally threw me back to film school. And I literally saw like comments from Bazin and Francis Truffaut, and I was like, oh my God, these are the guys that I studied. And then Cahiers du Cinéma, I was like, oh my God, like, am I back in school again? But I'll be honest, it was my first time watching it just so we can talk about it, because I want to talk about it with you. It is a purely breathtaking film, like the production, like to make it. And a funny thing that like me and Corey have been sharing and talking about, it's like it was probably all made without walkie-talkies, and like the technology like that was necessary to make it now versus like just the practicals necessary to make then.
The logistics of it.
It's absolutely crazy.
And the fact that it's about a theater group, it was probably done as a theater group, but on the stage with, in the most crude technique imaginable in terms of cameras and lighting and stuff like that.
Well, they had to move the sets every night to different locations, which I thought was fascinating.
And like two of the major crew members, like the composer and I think the set designer, they were Jewish, and so they had to, everything that they came up with, they had to share
and not take credit for
until after the war.
Pseudonyms. I think they use French names rather than names.
But yeah, it's if those of you playing the home game listening, do yourself a favor, check it out. You can actually watch the whole thing on YouTube, which is how I did it.
Oh, wow.
But it's available on iTunes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
I think on iTunes they have it like remastered and stuff like that too. So like it's awesome to watch it. And I, they say we mentioned the word crude and like, but it just takes, imagine like the manpower and the precise movements for like when people are moving towards in front of the camera and everything like that. I just imagine it now, and I don't like use a steady cam or anything. It's like, man, these guys were moving giant machines and they made it look so well.
Tom and I run a little web series. We had a shoot over the last 3 days this last weekend. We were complaining about some of the difficulties, and then we kept turning to each other like, you know what? In the 40s, they didn't have any of this. We're shooting on DSLRs and being like, but it doesn't look crisp.
Exactly.
Well, it's like the version that we're seeing now. I read that Marcel, he had 3 copies printed.
Oh, yeah.
And he had them stored throughout the country just in case. Because, I mean, the Nazis
didn't know what happened.
They didn't know what was going to happen.
They had banned movies over a certain time limit.
Yeah.
This runs at 3 hours.
Yeah. So
they had to make a cut that was about an hour long.
They did it in 2 parts. They did an hour and a half and then another hour and a half, and they combined them.
Yeah. And
Nazis didn't realize what these people were making.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They made it under their noses.
Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see.
It's the normal everyday festival. Don't worry about it.
I know that there's like a documentary of the making of the film.
Once Upon a Time, Children of Paradise. I want to watch it. Yeah,
but
there's a documentary.
Wouldn't it be super dope if there was like a theatrical version of like how it was made, like kind of like an Argo, like this
Oh,
under
yeah.
the cover kind of thing of a production being made under this.
Oh,
you
a
know,
movie about the production. I like it.
I think that'd be that's the thing. That's where the drama is. Like, oh, they made this great movie that was a huge success, but the story of how it was made is a story within itself.
Yeah.
Oh,
That'd be fascinating.
absolutely. Actually, I know someone who was working on a script about that.
Really?
That was like 20 years ago.
Oh.
And
Wow.
I never heard anything happening with it.
It'd be fascinating. I'd
I
sign
think
up to
people
watch
would dig it because I mean, it's we always ask each other in the room, and we ask our guests like, what's your favorite moment? But when I was thinking about that question, I was like, yeah, I can think of like the Baptiste scene when he's through pantomime explaining who robbed Garance,
Oh,
and I was like, no, the my favorite moment is just the production of the film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what they had to go against. It really was a statement of what was going on in the world at that time, and they persevered. And they were like, no, we're going to make this movie, and none of you have to know about it. And it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I know.
I watching the film, it was hard to separate myself from like the socio-political like culture that was going on when the film was being made. But
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. It's hard to watch it now without putting it in context of its time and
Mhm.
thinking about how was this made
Yeah.
and under what conditions and how
100%.
they were hiding Jews within the company.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about it is fascinating.
But just watching purely for the narrative,
Uh-huh.
I'll just say my heart was being torn to bits and pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Like all
Great
this
love story.
exactly all this unrequited love. I was like, oh my god, someone loves somebody, please.
I know.
It,
know.
it was just rough. Like I was watching it and I was like, my god, like and spoilers for everyone at home. I mean, I don't think it's really spoilers. It's over like,
It's
80 years old.
Yeah.
But like no one kind of has a happy ending.
No.
But I mean, I think that's something that an American audience wouldn't. They'd have trouble. I had trouble with it, but then a massive American audiences have trouble without having something that's like tightly knit up, that doesn't have like a Hollywood quote unquote ending.
Hollywood ending.
Yep.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it shows that in that time frame that sometimes like emotions are happening during a radical time, and people kind of are left wandering the entire time looking for something that they had but can't really capture it, kind of like
which is very Batman.
yeah, bringing it back.
Wow. Wow.
is.
Well, it's
Pretty
kind of when I was watching it at the end, I watched Gone with the Wind like a few years ago for the first time,
Mhm.
and I got to the end and I went, really? Really? I went fetal on the ground because I'm just like, it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
That is that.
Like Batman.
Like Batman.
But Kevin, do you have I mean, you said this is one of your favorite movies, but I mean, do you have like a favorite character in this film? We always ask that question typically of our movies.
No, not really.
Oh, is it kind of
No.
like everyone?
It's like the whole
I love
cast
that.
world of the movie
Yeah.
is
kinda how I
just
felt.
so incredible.
Everything
No.
in it and everything out of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Everything about it is just so beautiful.
So I asked what your favorite movies are, and this one was your first choice. We're not going to talk about your second choice, but I'm really curious of what your second choice
Or
is.
third, or fourth, or fifth.
Oh, come on.
I don't know.
Too many
you
to
somebody
choose
that-
from.
are
I'm
you-
the same way. I got like one, and then the rest of them are just like, I like movies.
I like-
Yeah, there's so many.
yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's hard to pick. It's really hard.
I'm happy with that one.
Yeah.
I had never seen it before learning about this interview. So I had watched it, and it is now one of my favorites.
Opened my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's-
good. I'm glad.
Oh yeah. I ended up I bought it on iTunes after I had watched it on YouTube so that I could see the restored collection and all the extras and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm glad you got
Yeah.
exposed to that. 'Cause
Absolutely, so thank
isn't
you.
it incredible?
Oh
I mean,
my
it's
God.
amazing.
I'm a huge fan of like I Lawrence of Arabia, Citizen Kane, and stuff like that, and it really kind of fit in with that mold for me.
Yeah. I would love, for some reason, I would love after the episode that, like you just reach out like, hey, watch this one too. It's like, hey, Kevin Conroy's picks.
Kevin's list.
the employee picks.
Lately, I've been on a Netflix bin
Mm.
Ooh.
What are you watching right now?
streaming. I just finished The Killing.
Ooh, yummy.
It's
super good.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Adding
It's
that to my Kevin list right now.
Yeah, seriously. I had a question for you. I guess to kind of heading towards the end of the show here. I'm very curious to know if you have a favorite line that you've stated or did for an episode or for a movie for one of Batman's lines.
Stuck with him.
And if you wouldn't mind for our audience reciting that line as Batman.
God.
He's gonna monologue. No,
If you had warned me before, I would have looked something up.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
I have a terrible memory for these things.
That's all right.
The iconic line is, I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
That's always
Perfect.
the
I
same.
think
chills.
that's the one we were hoping for
Yeah.
anyways.
just made my heart just kind of leap out just a tiny. Okay, a lot. It leaped out a
Right.
lot. Okay. Wow.
I had
Oh, you do?
One last question before we wrap it up here.
We're gonna keep doing this, Kevin. We're gonna keep having one
One more
last question.
question.
One last question. But seriously, this might be the last question. There's been some popular demand on Twitter lately about like bringing back some of these older shows. I know for me, I would love to see Batman the Animated Series with Bruce Timm, Andrea Romano.
We're
the
big Bruce Timm fans over
the
here
Happy
too.
Gang back.
Yeah.
But I also saw that there's a bit of like a resurgence for people wanting like a third season for Justice, or I guess we'd say like 2 more seasons of another Justice League. You know how there's Justice League 1 and then Justice League
Yeah,
Unlimited.
there's been an online petition to bring back the original Justice League.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It'd be really fun. And I know all the actors involved have committed to doing it if the studio ever put in the order.
Oh wow.
Oh my god.
They'd be crazy not to at this point.
Out of the two, I mean, okay, and so for me, I absolutely loved Batman Beyond. Absolutely. But if there could be one that you'd want to pick, which one would be Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, or Batman Beyond?
I have a soft spot for Batman the Animated Series
Okay.
because
So do we all.
it's just the characters are so amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, like you said, it was lightning. That show was. I mean, it's the show that I and many people I know hold all animated shows to this day.
As a standard.
Yeah.
And I think the great thing about it that we've talked about it. I don't know if you're aware. We've talked about it on previous episodes. But like it was a show that like one was WB animated, but then like it's typically for kids and there's toys, but adults loved it as well. And we as like
It was a
grown
show for
adults,
all audiences.
we could
Well,
still
it
watch
was originally a primetime show.
Oh, I did not know
The
that.
first season, Fox had it on prime time
Oh,
Interesting.
in
Makes sense.
'93.
Not know that.
And then it went to afternoon because there was there was something about Fox and WB. It went to the WB network. It was a time when the television was splintering, and so it started on Fox in the evenings, and then WB took it back and put it on WB or something in the afternoons.
Interesting.
But it was designed to be an adult show.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
could see that.
Well, Bruce Timm is kind of like a genius. He's a possessed character. You know what I mean? He's always thinking.
Yeah.
He's always thinking, and you can't get anything by him. Performances, he knows exactly what he wants, and he'll get it out of you.
Yeah.
So you're saying he's Batman?
Well, I think when he's creating the shows, he plays all the characters in his head. So he knows what he wants it to sound like.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
He's a very, very, but everyone involved in the creation of the show, all the actors, all the writers, all the producers, Alan Burnett, the executive producer, a woman named Jean McCready, who used to be the head of Warner Animation at the time. Everyone were so committed to that show and took it so seriously. And I know that, in the general middle America, there's a sense that there's a Hollywood kind of elite, or a Hollywood like doesn't take America as seriously or something.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be more wrong. in my experience at Warner Animation. There was such respect there for the audience and such respect for the characters in the shows they're creating. They never felt they were writing down to the audience. They never felt they were. They always felt like they were writing up to the audience.
I like that. That's something I've said about the animated series itself. Is it wasn't afraid to touch on the more mature subject matter in a way that was appropriate for both kids and adults, and everyone could kind of dive into and treat them.
Absolutely.
They didn't treat kids like idiots.
No, and they didn't ever talk down to the audience.
Yeah.
And they took their jobs very, very seriously. And there was an enormous amount of work that went into it. They doubled the budget, Warner Brothers. They spent twice as much per half hour as had previously been spent.
Makes sense.
A full symphony score.
Yeah.
It was, that just hadn't been done. It just hadn't been done.
I mean, it's one of those magic moments where all the right people stumble into each other and kind of come together to create something that's lasted. Like my entire life has been defined by that.
Right.
Batman's been defined by that show. So.
And you don't know what's happening when you're in the middle of doing it. You're just kind of doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even realize that all these perfect cogs are in these wheels creating this beautiful machine until it's done. And you think, oh my God, what have I been a part of? This is amazing.
Till you're going to cons and having people cry and hug you. Yeah. So, but yeah, I just, thank you for your time today. We're going to wrap it up there. I don't think I can say thank you enough.
Yes. Before we end, is there anything you would like our audiences to check out or
the Home
find
for Vets,
you on?
Real Kevin Conroy. Anywhere else you'd like them to check out?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm Real Kevin Conroy, and Facebook, and also I have a website, realkevinconroy.com. They can hear some of my singing. If they
Oh man, I had a question about that too.
Let's ask it. Yeah.
Yes. I had a question about that specifically. Did that come out of your love of singing? Did the writers know that?
Andrea knew that I loved to
That's
sing.
perfect.
She knew that I sang.
Oh
And
my
she
God.
said, we have to have Kevin sing. And he said, Batman can't sing.
But he
And
could.
they thought, and that was Bruce's genius, is, having it be him paying off a debt
Yeah.
to Poison Ivy. And he has to do this,
It was wonderful.
And then that choice of Am I Blue is just so perfect for the character.
I know.
Oh my God, I can't believe I almost forgot that question. That was like, I walked in here today and I was like, guys, I have one question I want to ask.
I don't care if we ask anything else, just that.
But thank you for letting us take up a majority of your evening.
Yeah.
Sure.
Everybody at home, thank you so much for listening. More information can be found out about the show at nerdonthepodcast.com.
Or you can find us on Instagram at We're Not Wearing Hockey Pads.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I had to do it. I
Really?
almost forgot. Yeah.
The last, okay. As
You're not wearing
always.
pants?
Never when I record.
Never wears pants. It's so weird. So weird.
Kevin, you've been a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making our nights.
As always.
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.